Hello everyone, it's Liam from Gaming Master Race here, and welcome to what's going to be a slightly different video. Now, I'm going to do these in parts because it's going to be too long if I don't. So I'm going to try and do them in parts to try and keep things interesting, and so I don't encourage you to switch off halfway through. So it's no secret that I'm a huge a fan of video games. And one of the things I really wanted to do as well was create my own video games. So when a long time ago, I used to do it as a hobby, and I still do it as a hobby when I find the encouragement to do so. The software that I used to create these video games was a software called the Games Factory back 20 or 15, 16 years ago even. The name of the software now is called ClickTeam Fusion, and ClickTeam Fusion is the evolved version of the Games Factory. It started off as Coral Click and Create, and then Europress got involved, and then it became the Games Factory. Then it became Multimedia Fusion, which was the more in-depth and expansive version there, which gave you more development tools. And then eventually it became ClickTeam Fusion 2.5, and it's basically a way of creating games with very little coding experience. Now, that's not to say that the games are going to be bad, because there have been some very, very, very big selling titles that were created with ClickTeam Fusion, and to name a few, you got Distraint 2, The Escapists, Bubba Is You, Five Nights at Freddy's, and the Angry Video Game Nerd video game as well, all created on ClickTeam Fusion. So the real only limitations with this software is your imagination. It's probably best built for 2D games. If you really want to make 3D games, there is an add-on called Firefly, but I think that's a lot more advanced than what ClickTeam Fusion is. I've never used it, so I can't really describe what it's like, but maybe there's some people out there that has used it and they can comment. However, anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to go through some games that I created back when this was called the Games Factory. Now, I want to just put a warning out to everybody that these games are bad. They are not good in any way, shape or form. I cannot draw. Back then, I had a very, very crap imagination, so I could barely think of a storyline for anything. Everything is pretty much broken because it was done on legacy software. It was created on legacy software and now using ClickTeam Fusion, so a lot of the timing's off and the games are broken, but you'll soon see all that. So we're going to start off with one of the first games on the list, which is A Day at the Races. Now, let me explain what A Day at the Races is, and I'll kind of go through as well how this software works very slightly. Let's go through how the software works. So first off, you got what's called the Storyboard Editor. This is where you add frames or levels to your game. You can just give it a title. You can set the resolution. So back then, it was pretty much always 640 by 480 because that's the type of resolution we had back then. I think even then, 10 something by 1024. It escapes me what it is. Anyway, very, very low resolution. You then have your frame editor, which is this. And then you've got the event editor, which is where you code. So the frame editor is where you design your level, and then the event editor is where you code your level. Anyway, let's go back to what A Day at the Races is. So in the arcades, I'm sure everyone has these. You'd have these like 10p machines in which you put 10p in, bet on a horse, and then those horses race. That's pretty much what this is. In terms of the graphics, I don't know where I got the horse sprites from. I know the fact that these here, the crowd, that was provided with the software. The backdrop here, the quick backdrop, was also provided with the software, and I've got this really crappy font here, which I guess is supposed to be like Queen, A Day at the Races, and I believe I created that fence myself. So the idea is for this game is you put your 10p in and the horses race, and then I'll get to how I coded that later. Let's run the application and we'll kind of go through what we have to do. So, oh, that's loud. That's very loud in my headset. Okay, that's a bit better for me. Right, okay. So yeah, there's the intro. I will go over that Black Bell Presents bit there, but anyway, as you can see, first of all, so you're probably hearing, I'm going to turn the music down just a bit so that you can hear me. You're probably hearing some plagiarised music. Hang on, because back then I had no music creation software or anything like that, so I would download MIDI files and just use that as background music. I also want to explain that I did not sell any of these games. It was a hobby, and I may have uploaded one or two to like a creations, like a developer's website, in which you can say, oh, I developed this game, and kind of show it off. But it was all free, and everyone's games were quite as equally as bad. There were some quite impressive games, but then there were games like mine who were very, very bad. So let's just press 1, which starts the game. So again, you press 1, 2, 3 or 4 to pick a horse. So let's just press 6. Let's spend which pays out £1. So it's cost 10p, but it pays out £1. So you've got your cash down here, which is your score. Again, it's supposed to be £1, but I've only done it as 100. So now I've only got 90p. And as you can see, even when I actually started that game there, the screen just moves on, so it doesn't follow the race at all. So let's move on to the frame editor, where you can see the individual objects. You've got the different horses here, and then you've actually got this dot here, which is what the frame is actually following. So if you go to the event editor, you can see always here, center display at X by X of dot. Why that dot is moving straight off the bat, I don't know. Because I think at the start of the frame, this needs to be deactivated, and I think it's already activated from what I can tell. Let's just see if we can change that, see if we can fix it here and now. So I've just pressed 1. Oh, it hasn't fixed it. I don't actually know what's done there, but anyway. So the idea is that each horse is part of a group, and that group is called Group Good. Now, every 80th of a second, what's going to happen is it's going to pick one of those horses at random, and it's going to set the speed of that horse to the current speed of the horse plus 5, meaning that every 80th of a second it's going to gain a little bit of speed. So that basically means that it's completely random. So you can choose whatever horse you want. You can choose the one that's going to pay out the most, but it's got just as much chance as any of the other horses as winning the race. That's how this game works. There's nothing else to it than that. So yeah. So let's go on to the frame editor again. Let's just have a look at the frame. So you've got the horses. We've got our little dot here, which the frame follows. You've got the numbers of your horse and how much they pay out. You've got your cash counter down here, which is how much you start off with. So I set it to start off with 100. Every time you choose a horse, it takes away 10. And when you choose your horse, it will tell you the number of the horse you've actually selected to play, as is here. So I'll choose 5. It says 5. Down here, the score will disappear. Down, go -10. And the horses race. As you see, they slightly get faster. This one's 1. The second he touches this white line with his nose, that's the end of the race. This will now stop because all I've done is all I've asked it to do is to run the frame. So what it does is at the end of the race, it actually restarts the frame. But if you're only testing the frame, it closes the application. Whereas if you run the application, it will actually work as it's supposed to as a full game. Let's run the entire application. So Black Belt as well is the name of the studio that I have chose to use. I don't know how I come up with that name. I just did, and I've liked it ever since, to be honest with you. I actually quite like the name Black Belt, but it started off as Black Belt, then it went to Black Belt Entertainment, and now I want it to be, if I make one now, a game now, it'll be Black Belt Studios. So let's press 1 just to start the game, and let's choose horse 6 because that pays out the most. Race is now started, and as the race is started, you can press whatever button you want, and it will ignore your controls. So you can do whatever you want, and it'll ignore it. So I lost. Let's press C to collect those winnings, and what will happen now, it says click to continue, and that's it, and then game over, and everything's out of line again because it's legacy software. So that's all plagiarized music again. That is A Day at the Races. That was one of the games that I created back then. I think I even tried creating it again for more recently, because I was going to maybe turn it into a Android game in which you can collect prizes as well with your winnings. But it's not something I ever followed up on because the game just doesn't really have any depth to it at all. It's just literally that, and that would get so boring. So I gave up on that very, very quickly. Let's do another game here. So this one is called the Blockbusters Board. So let me just open this up and close A Day at the Races. Now, one thing you need to know is that I really do enjoy game shows, and in the UK, there was a game show called Blockbusters, and basically, let's load this up and I'll go through what the aim of the game was. You have two teams. You have Team Blue and Team White, and the contestants would be shown this board. At the beginning of every round, you would have a random letter chosen. So let's just say K. That would be flashing, and then you'd get a question such as, what K was a well-known fighting game developed by Rare? And the answer would be Killer Instinct. So the first letter of every answer will be whatever letter is chosen. So in this instance, it'd be K. And Team Blue would have 2 members on that team. Team White would only have 1 member. And if the blue team get that question right, this tile will turn blue. And then the idea would be that they would have to go from left to right to create a line. But it's White have to compete, and they have to get the question right to block them, hence the name Blockbusters. So let's run the frame, and we'll see how this works. So it's not a game. This is more like an application for any friends that kind of want to play Blockbusters. So you'd click on a tile, and just like the TV show, the tile would flash. So we've chosen L. So basically, the question would be L. Anything what L is my name? The answer would be Liam. Then they'd be like, oh, Blue got that right. Well done, Blue. So the tile turns blue. You keep going across, and you press B to turn this tile blue. You click on P, and White got it right. So you press W, and then the tile will turn white. And then you keep doing that until you've got 3 in a row. And when there's only 1 hexagon left to create Blockbusters, you would then get what is called a flashing white or flashing blue light. So I created a shortcut for that too. So if you press the number 3 on the keyboard, all the 3 hexagons would flash white. Pressing 4 would stop them from flashing. The same with if you were blue. If this is nearly Blockbusters now, so if you press 1, all blue would flash. Pressing 2 would stop them from flashing. And if you were to get Blockbusters, pressing return would then create the Blockbusters animation, which would be this. And that's all there is to that. Again, being a fan of those kind of games, there's my desktop. That's kind of the thing that I really wanted to do. It's just something that I kind of did, not really badly, but it's just something I just wanted to do. Just to play around with, and that's how you gain your experience with this kind of software, is just by playing around with things like that. Again, looking at the event editor, this is everything I did. User clicks within a zone, change the animation sequence to walking. So if we go to the frame editor and I click on one of these hexagons, not the letter, the hexagon, you can see that frame animation walking is just the hexagon getting darker in color and then getting lighter again, and then that will be looped. So if you press play on that, as you can see, the animation is looping, and all these hexagons are placed as drag and drop. So you have to kind of be very careful with how you place them. And that's pretty much all there is to it, to be completely honest with you. And it's not something I spent a lot of time in, but it is one of those things, again, that you just play around with until you're happy and you get some experience. But again, there is probably a much better way to doing it than all this lines of code, because all this line here, if you were to turn that into a full game, there's over 145 lines of code there, and that could probably be halved, more than halved, to be perfectly honest with you, these days, and that would probably cause your game to run quite slow, so you wouldn't want to do that. So there's the 2 first examples of bad games that I made. I mean, one's an application and one's a bad game, I suppose you could say. So if you would join me in part 2, we'll have a look at some more legacy games that I created from a very long time ago. I think 2005 is what he said, so I would have been, that's quite a long time ago. I would have been about 20 odd years old. Join me in part 2 and we'll go through some more games, if you will. So yeah, leave a comment, leave a like if you would, and if you do like the video, subscribe, because there is a lot more content to come. Again, thanks very much for watching. See you in part 2.